Well, this is going to be a very educational video today. I say this because our system of education is under fire, not from the religious right, oh yeah, them too, but also from the authoritarian left. Social justice on steroids. SJW's gone wild. Truly another disturbing trend. According to the New York Post, elite K-8 school teaches white students they're born racist. But of course, we need to get their brains while they're still young. An elite Manhattan school is teaching white students as young as 6 that they're born racist and should feel guilty benefiting from white privilege, while heaping praise and cupcakes on their black peers. Administrators at the Bank Street School for Children on the Upper West Side claim it's a novel approach to fighting discrimination, and that several other private New York schools are doing it, but even liberal parents aren't buying it. They complain the K-8 school of 430 kids is separating whites in classes where they're made to feel awful about their whiteness, and all the kids of color in other rooms where they're taught to feel proud about their race and are rewarded with treats and other privileges. Meanwhile, white kids are herded into separate classrooms and taught to raise their awareness of the prevalence of whiteness and privilege, challenge notions of colorblindness and assumptions of normal, good, and American, and understand and own European ancestry and see the tie to privilege. But alas, this is old news from way back in 2016. Let's move on to something more recent. There are some subjects one thinks will be immune from the input of social justice warriors. Reading a recent article on PJ Media, we are told teachers instructed to use math to indoctrinate kids in social justice. Well then, tell me more. Inquiring minds want to know. There are some subjects one thinks will be immune from the input of social justice warriors. While social studies are ripe for their meddling, as are literature and even science these days, a subject like math should be resistant to their tampering? Well, one would think that. Unfortunately, a report at Campus Reform shows that such an assumption would be wrong. Before we go further, let us get a look at who these SJW meddlers are. At Teach for America, our mission is to enlist, develop, and mobilize as many as possible of our nation's most promising future leaders to grow and strengthen the movement for educational equity and excellence. You can't fault them for wanting to mobilize future leaders now, do you? Let's get back to what they are doing. Teaching social justice through secondary mathematics is a 6-week online course designed by Teach for America, which provides free online classes from top universities such as Harvard University, MIT, and Columbia University. Unveiled earlier this month, the course aims to teach math instructors how to craft lesson plans that incorporate social justice in order to raise their students' awareness. Social justice math? Do you ask students to think deeply about global and local social justice issues within your mathematics classrooms? A course overview asks. This education and teacher training course will help you blend secondary math instruction with topics such as inequity, poverty, and privilege to transform students into global thinkers and mathematicians. According to the website, the course can even help students to learn math because while many aspects of middle and high school math can seem abstract to students, yeah, imagine that. Math as an abstraction. How absurd. The developers claim that setting the mathematics within a specially developed social justice framework can help students realize the power and meaning of both the data and social justice concerns. Well, this is getting interesting, and I can imagine one of the proposed math problems that would help the young social justice warriors in training to see the dominance of the cishet white patriarchy in numbers. Little Johnny has 10 apples, but since he is a sexist shitlord capitalist pig dog, he must give half to Susie, who has endured a millennia of oppression. The other half of his apples must go to marginalized group. But there is more. Since Susie is a privileged white person, she is commanded to turn over her apples to the groups of people that little Johnny has developed unfortunate phobias about. Now we have educational equity in math. Sorry to interrupt the article. They continue. They're not completely wrong that such a presentation could help students understand abstract concepts, but so could a myriad of other ways of presenting the data that have nothing to do with so-called social justice. One thing to remember about this is that it's not really about helping kids learn math. That's a secondary matter in their minds when compared to the all-important matter of indoctrinating children into the SJW's preferred way of thinking. They seek to conscript children into their ranks with it. Heaven forbid you simply give children the ability to discern the facts for themselves. It's unthinkable to focus on giving kids critical reasoning skills instead of indoctrination. After all, they might look for themselves and see how much bunk the social justice jihadis are peddling, and gasp, not conform. No, they'll use any inroads they can get to manipulate our children's minds. Joseph Stalin once said, "Education is a weapon whose effects depend on who holds it in his hands and at whom it is aimed." The Stalinists in the social justice ranks seem to agree. As unbelievable as it is, there are actually social justice warrior math teachers. This person's peculiar educational experiences include surviving misogyny, racism, and, well, let's just call it giving birth. Let's look at the liberated mathematician, Piper Haron's impressive list of academic achievements. At New York University, she survived external and internalized misogyny, survived external and internalized racism. At Princeton University, survived external and internalized misogyny, survived external and internalized racism, survived pervasive and internalized cult of genius mythology. I am not making this up. There's a link in the description. Go there and see for yourself, people. Real-life single lady of arts and oppression. Grew human in own body. Gave birth to new human with own body. Created milk with own body to sustain new human. Survived pregnancy, labor, and infant care related misogyny. Real-life mistress of arts in self-liberation. Grew, birthed, and created milk for new human with own body, survived thesis writing while being a stay-at-home parent, and finally Princeton University awarded a PhD in, you guessed it, mathematics. What a surprise. Now, I'm certain at one time or another we all have been guilty of a little padding or fluffing of our bio or resume, but this one takes the award. Giving birth and lactating is no small achievement, I have to admit, but maybe Piper Haron feels compelled to contrive so much excess to make up for the lack of academic experience. To be fair, this growing human bodies and creating milk thing could be consuming all of her time, and don't forget she is a veteran survivor of many serious internalized and external conditions. So now we have a clue of what type of people teach for America might be looking for to fulfill their equity agenda. Well then, it looks like the bio of Super SJW Piper Haron isn't insufficient, it's just not up to date. You see, I was hasty in not using the Google to search her current whereabouts. She pops up again at University of Hawaii and attracted attention for, let's guess what could be troubling her. University of Hawaii professor demands white men quit their jobs. Now, if you thought that her bio was some kind of prank, this article is nothing of the kind. A University of Hawaii math professor has urged every white man to quit their job or take a demotion and deemed those who disagree with her proposition as racist, sexist, and transphobic. Piper Haron, an assistant professor at the University of Hawaii who holds a PhD degree in mathematics from Princeton, has penned an article for the American Mathematical Society blog calling on white men to get out of the way. Not to alarm you, but I probably want you to quit your job or at least take a demotion, Haron wrote, adding that, statistically speaking, you are probably taking up room that should go to someone else. If you are a white cis man, you almost certainly should resign from your position of power, the professor added. Haron went on to suggest that if quitting is too difficult, white men should at least get off your hiring committee, your curriculum committee, and make sure you're replaced by a woman of color or trans person. On the About the Editors page, Haron is described as someone who tried really hard to play by the rules of society and academia, but she failed. Not only did she fail, but she was miserable and found that playing by the rules wouldn't even keep her safe. She officially got her degree from Princeton University in January of 2016 and is currently a temporary assistant professor at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. She dedicates her work to everyone who dabbles in misery, trying to find their way in systems that don't support them, and to anyone trying to tear it all down. The Hawaii University professor continued her bizarre rant on the mathematics blog, claiming that while sexism is prevalent in society, it's much easier to achieve equality at universities. What can universities do? Well, that's easier. Stop hiring white cis men, except as needed to retain people who are not white cis men until the problem goes away. If you think this is a bad or unserious idea, your sexism, racism, transphobia is showing. This is some pretty amazing stuff. There is so much wrong with what she is peddling, it's difficult to know where to start. But needless to say, Haron, as with many of the self-anointed high priestesses of the third wave feminism and social justice religion, if you disagree with her opinions and dogma, then you are the problem. For decades, courageous people all over this country have dedicated their lives to true social justice and equality for all. And when I say for all, the heroes of the past and present want all to be equal. But this new breed of SJW wants revenge or retribution against those who they deem had forefathers in the distant past who were very bad people. This self-styled vigilantism is not going to win over many honest people. On the website, The Resurgent, they pretty much sum up the issues faced by American academia along with some very specific topics as shown here. Social justice warriors are doing our college kids a disservice. Probably the best and worst thing that is available to our youth today is college. Unfortunately, our colleges have become something less than institutions for educational growth and more centers for liberal indoctrination, eschewing core academic instruction, and exerting the personal ideological worldview of the professors into the curriculum. The apparent goal is to create an army of social justice warriors for the future, rather than equip students with real-world knowledge. As a result, parents are paying for indoctrination with a side order of actual knowledge. Case in point, Harvard University is allowing a school club to release a guidebook into the stream of student life that is so incredibly out of touch with real life, you have to wonder what other fairy tales are being passed on as truth there. The Office of BGLTQ Student Life, as it is called, recently released a guide suggesting that for some, gender can change daily. I'll repeat that. Gender can change daily. Sex assigned at birth and gender identity are not necessarily the same. The flyer begins elaborating that anatomical characteristics may not always align with gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, hormonal makeup, physical anatomy, and or how one is perceived in daily life. That's because sex and gender are not the same. It then segues into the claim that there are more than two sexes, but this time focuses on biological considerations, citing a post by the organization Intersex International asserting that at least 2% of people are born with some combination of male and female genitalia, hormones, or chromosomes. 2%? That many? You think? Returning to the theme of identity, the flyer tells students that for many people, cis and transgender expression, identity, and self-understanding can change from day to day, noting that gender can be expressed through one's speech, mannerisms, clothing, and more. This mentality, of course, lending legitimacy to the notion that you can pray away the gay or the gay conversion therapy. You can just change your clothes and you're this or that. Why not let them help you decide in a modern religious facility? They can put troubled girls in pink rooms and confused boys in front of TV showing Hulk Hogan wrestling. They conclude with, classes in advanced virtue signaling or intro to protesting today will not prepare students to leave the halls of academia and adequately fill the real world needs of tomorrow. A better stance to be made on college campuses would be to simply use the label student and do the job of teaching useful applications for the time after they leave the bubble of college life. Well said, Susan Wright. I applaud you. But there is more trouble at university. Following the precedent set by the University of Arizona, you can see the video I made about this recently in the link below. UCLA hiring student social justice advocates to fight against whiteness and patriarchy. As reported at Heat Street, the University of Arizona isn't the only institution to hop aboard the social justice bandwagon with official positions for social justice warriors. The The prestigious University of California, Los Angeles is joining the ranks, announcing plans to hire students to function as social justice advocates to combat whiteness, heteronormativity, and the patriarchy. The publicly funded university has announced plans to pay 8 to 10 students with taxpayer dollars to hold official social justice advocate positions in the upcoming semester. The Social Justice Advocates program describes the position as follows. The Social Justice Advocates Initiative aims to empower students by developing them as conscious and critical leaders and equipping them with cultural and political capital as they navigate a world that operates on whiteness, patriarchy, and heteronormativity as the primary ideologies. Social justice advocates will learn about systems, oppression, and how they intersect and build upon one another, maintain the status quo. Most importantly, individuals and the collective will be empowered through liberatory scholarship and practices and strengthening their emotional intelligence to create change within their spheres of influence. Social justice advocates will educate their peers on how they can make UCLA a more equitable space for all students and communities. The new program follows the creation of a series of UCLA workshops promoting social justice, one of which addresses social justice myths like reverse racism. A workshop titled All Aboard the Struggle Bus teaches that minority students face struggles in unfathomable numbers. There has never been a better time to be a victim. Well, this just about wraps up this week's news on the health of our educational system. I do hope that the examples shown in this video are outliers and have not become the norm. It's not like we're seeing the glamorization of drag queens reading to our kids or anything. Oh, don't get so serious. I have nothing against drag queens. And so we reached the end of this transmission of Radio Disturbing Trends. Thank you for watching, and please do present your opinions in the comments section below. I know there is this urge to call people names, so if you have something constructive to say, that would be so nice of you. Oh yes, and hit the like and subscribe. Goodbye.